Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. I'm with my next guest, a fantastic artist, one of the producers who's making the best beats that I've seen for a while. It is the one and only Nef. You see him as produced by Nef around the block as well. Worked with some absolutely amazing artists in terms of Termanology. You've got Nems, you've got Streetz, you've got Factz. The list literally goes on, and you've got your recent project that came out, Radio Days, as well, with Bobby J from Rockaway. And that project is so good. I was listening to it before this, and the beats on there, I was like, even before I listened to the lyrics, the beats just feel good. So, man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for the ill introduction. Just being here is dope, man. I love that we can have technology and did you say you're in Sydney right now?
Melbourne.
What time is it right there?
It is 7 a.m. on the nose.
Insane. Amazing. Yeah. I appreciate you being up early to do this and coordinating, knowing the time over here and everything. But yeah, it's dope. It's dope that we can just do stuff like this. Hip hop is huge, it's worldwide, but some technology is kind of weird these days, but stuff like this is beautiful, man. It's dope. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I cannot agree more. COVID was really weird. I think for everybody, we were getting used to the technology age and just moving into, but things like being able to connect with people literally around the world about a genre of music that we both love is just, I never thought, honestly, that this is where my life would be at some stage, where we could actually do this, or this was a reality.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. People been going on tour in Europe and vice versa and stuff like that. But to have this instant thing happen, like you said, the lockdown, remember it's all right, Friday night. All right. Who's the DJ you're going to watch tonight? All right, we're going club hopping in your bedroom, just checking to see which live stream, going back and forth. So, yeah, it's dope. I feel, it's just a good time right now.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that COVID in a weird way elevated hip hop, or do you think it was ultimately a bit of a detractor? How do you view those 2 years or so where no one really knew where the world would end up?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was amazing. For me, I loved every second of it. Obviously it was a dark time for the world. A lot of people were sick. A lot of people died. But taking that away, my own personal bubble, my own personal spot, me and my girlfriend, we had a child. I made a ton of beats. We moved. Me and Term opened up a studio together. I finished my project that I was working on. It's hard to say as a whole. I think it definitely helped as a whole, technology wise, I think. But it was did it help you? Did it help you? Did it hurt you? Did you let it get the best of you? Because I know a lot of people that went through major depressions in it. And, they weren't able to get this stuff done, and they got caught up in watching Netflix and TV and whatnot the whole time. And some people also did that and needed that space. But then there's, for me, it was all right, I have my day written out. I have to be disciplined, get stuff done. I was live streaming. I was one of the first people to do a live stream beat making thing where you could see the different angles. And I just ran with that. I think I made maybe 300 beats in a 3-month period. Wow. Yeah, it was dope.
So do you think that is the discipline you've always had, or was it new when you were okay, this is a new scenario. What are we going to do? How are we going to get through it?
Well, so I'll break the ice with this. Is I'm in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol. So before that, not so much. But with working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous and doing those kind of self-development things and retreats and seminars and whatnot, I have been a disciplined guy for a long time. So yeah, before that I was, I'll tell you, moving to New York, it was hard to keep those disciplines because it's just go, 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 go. You're running late. You're doing this. You're doing that. So it was more so like getting to know my disciplines again and like going back to what I was. Because when I started doing music full time, it was like that. When I moved to New York, I kind of had to just keep what I could and just kind of go with the flow a little more. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I heard, a lot of people struggled during that period with their vices because just like I have nothing else to do. Like I'm just in this room essentially, or I'm in my place, I'm in my apartment and I'm trying to figure out the time. I don't really have a lot to do because I was working a 9 to 5. I cannot work my 9 to 5 anymore, or it's really scaled back. And so it's interesting hearing you be like, I was able to double down on my like creativity, on a routine, and really make sure that, my vices remain in the past as opposed to getting the best of me again.
No, for sure. It was like in New York, it was crazy. It's like, all right, when the curfew got like lifted and it was like a partial lockdown situation for a while, like people were drinking in the street. You could get alcohol delivered to your crib. You could get a drink delivered to your crib. It was the Wild Wild West and nobody cared. And then it went to like somewhat normalcy and it was like, oh, okay, all right. But yeah, I mean, I definitely know people and her, it's easy to get caught up that way. You know what I mean? It's just idle time.
But how did you manage it? Like, because I'm interested in the journey of like, because it became so available, it became so normalized. And yeah, it's tough because you don't see the end. I think that's the hardest part. You don't really know when it's going to end.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like with drinking and stuff like that, like it's that part of my life is so far gone. So it's more like, watching that stuff go by. I'm just so far, it's been, it'll be 15 years in a couple months, in a few months.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So it's like that part is so far gone. And I'm in hip hop, like I'm around it all the time. I just, for me, it was like, I had to get my foundation very solid before I could go into that. Like anyone that listens to this or just in the world, like if you are someone that gets sober, like definitely like take a step back for a while. Like I would not have gone into like the hip hop music scene like my first year or first couple years of sobriety. But it's like once you get that foundation, they even talk about it in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're spiritually fit, you can go where any other man can. You know what I mean? And you can also, you can keep booze in your house to entertain people. And it's like, that's where I'm at in this state and in this time in my life where I'm like, hey, if I'm feeling good, I can go anywhere. I'm not going to be tempted.
Yeah. I mean, I think that should be a good place for anyone to be. I think if you I think that's a good test to be like, hey, if you buy a bottle of wine and you end up always being the person who drinks it, that's probably not a good sign.
Well, look into that.
Yeah. But that's really interesting. Like, because how did you get into hip hop? Like, what was your kind of evolution? Because obviously, you've been doing it for a while and you've made a lot of great connections. But what was your like beginning steps to getting in there?
Like the real beginning, I grew up in a super small town that didn't really have a lot of hip hop. So like I grew up on like hippie music and then was like into like 90s skater, like rock alternative for a while. And like I heard some hip hop from like my older sister, but that was like, like Lauryn Hill and like Eminem and Dre, like really big artists. And then I started working in kitchens. I was getting in trouble. And I started working in kitchens because I had the, probation, parole, whatever officer that was calling me said that one of the stipulations was I had to get a job. So I got a job working as a dishwasher, and there was 2 cooks that were into like super underground, like nerdy hip hop. And, they're introducing me to all this. So it's like I got into like the Stones Throw, Def Jux, like that kind of era right away, and then had to like reverse engineer over time. of like, 90s stuff and like Origins and things like that. But so listening to it every day, and then I was dating a chick that her cousin had just got out on parole. Like he just got out of jail, was on parole, was living with her dad. She was living with me. I was like 15 years old. We were living together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In my parents' basement, like little apartment situation. And he DJ'd, and he had like all these stacks of records that he brought in with him. He like set up a turntable in like the corner of her room because she wasn't really there that much. And we would go stay there every once in a while because we could drink there. We could like, no one cared. Like we could just do whatever we wanted there. And I just remember seeing him do that and being so intrigued, and him being like, yo, you can scratch. And I learned how, and he was like, all right, you got to get a needle. You can use these, but you have to get your own needle. So I saved up, grabbed a needle. I was working a full-time job, and I just like got obsessed with being able to scratch and like coming up with like little mini routines for hours. And I got a pair of like really crappy turntables that were like belt drive. Didn't know what I was doing, just found some stuff on eBay, set it up, and I was like, I'm a DJ now. And then, but like life stuff happened. And then like a year into that, whatever, I started, doing hard drugs, getting arrested all the time. Then I went through that whole situation, got into a couple institutions, and then I got out, got sober for real. And it was like maybe a year or 2 years before I even like had it in my head. I think I subconsciously knew like, yo, you gotta get right here and right here before you try to do anything else besides recovery. And I did, and I found, a friend that sold me his pair of turntables, got back into it. And there was like, I was living in New Hampshire, and there was a little hip hop scene, believe it or not. And there was like these weekly hip hop shows, and they would do like an open mic, and it was 18 plus. And I was like maybe 19 or something at the time. And I was like dabbling here and there. I dabbled for a few years, and then there was like an OG in town, Def Rock. And he invited me over to his studio, and he had this studio with like all these 70s synths and records, and like it seemed like endless amounts of MPCs and the sequencers and stuff. And I was like, what is happening? And he was like, yo, you got to get this. And it was the MPC 1000. And he showed me a couple things, like how you could chop a sample and manipulate it. And it was like, this is it. Like, I need this. And I was DJing I would DJ, local hip hop showcases and stuff like that. But that was like really the introduction of it. And then it was like really just trying to teach myself for years, and tons of trial and error, and like maybe some YouTube stuff here and there, sticky notes on the walls, like a serial killer, and just wanting it, you know what I mean? But I didn't have like people that come over the crib and show me how to do it, you know what I mean? So it was like a lot of that. And I was in New Hampshire for years before, anything really started to click.
And so, because you were talking about so you were 15 working a full-time job, and then how long was the break between when you first were introduced by and then when you got out and started taking seriously again? Like, what was that time period?
That must have been like 4-ish, maybe 5 years. You know what I mean? It was like a year and a half of like going hard, not like getting introduced and like going hard and getting into trouble, but like a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then like 2 years of getting sober. Getting my mind right and everything. And then being like, okay, cool. I can get into this.
So did you drop out of school because you said you're working the full-time job?
So this is a crazy part. I've never been to school in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my mother homeschooled me, my brother and sister. They went to school like later on in life. And then I dropped out when I was 16. I dropped out of homeschooling legally. And I was working full-time. That was another thing. I was like, it was always New York too. It was weird. It was like, at that point, I didn't realize like people could actually make it in music. So I was like, all right, well, I really love cooking, and I fell in love with cooking. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get my GED at 17, then move to New York, go to culinary school, open up a restaurant, and then I'll have a speakeasy in the back, so then I can still enjoy, making music and DJing and stuff like that. And then I just crashed and burned really hard.
Well, man, it's never too late. You could still do it. You just got the music part down pat. It's never like, because I've found, and I personally, I'm also into cooking. Like, I think the weird thing is of like the way cooking used to be talked about isn't like it's talked about now. Like it genuinely is creative in the sense of like, I've noticed that a lot of, artists are also into cooking because they've tapped into this like weird place within themselves of like, oh, I can find creativity within the kitchen and I can like play with ingredients and really tap into it, even the visualization of it all. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, like I said, it's never too late for you to be able to do that at some point.
I wouldn't be as hands-on, but that is one of the goals. Like, I mean, I worked in kitchens for maybe 12 years and that just ruined it. But I still love food. I still will open a restaurant down the road. You know what I mean? Called Kensington Alley, and that'll happen. Some good comfort and farmer food.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's the cool part about like seeing where hip hop artists can go is like where they can go outside of just the music. I think that's like what we're seeing way more of is like hip hop is now almost like an avenue for the rest of your life in the sense of it opens these doors for you to realize dreams that you had as a kid, like that restaurant dream. Like I just think that's an awesome thing to go down. And then obviously you got your artists who are just like pure artists that they don't want to do anything else. But that's what I'm seeing way more of is it's tapping into this like, oh, awesome, I can do this. And now I want to do this and I want to do this. And I want to supplement everything that I do.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. You see it with like Bun B. And you're seeing certain people get into like coffee and just like different businesses. And like, those are everyone's smart, but like people that are doing that, that's incredible. That's beautiful. Cause like also, we get residuals on songs, stuff like that. But it's like, all right, we are like, you got to figure out your retirement plan at some point. You know what I mean? So it's like, if the music might not be the full retirement plan, or maybe you didn't stash something or invest, it's like, all right, then, you like get different businesses, take that music, you can still do it. But it's like, all right, like you said, what are other things that you wanted to do that maybe were an idea that might have not been fathomable when you were younger and you didn't have the capital or you didn't have the connections? Now you have capital, now you have connections, and now you have the doability of it. For sure.
And you have the, like we were talking about at the beginning, the discipline, like you've got enough like experience to know that you can get through the ups and the downs. Because I think when you're young, you have this like false idea of, hey, it's always going to be uphill. I know it's going to be tough potentially, but it's always uphill. But what you don't see is like the up and the down, and like you really go through the plateaus. And then there's always this feeling of like, am I really in this forever? But when you're older, you've gone through that already. You know that you can get through it. You know that you can deal with the challenges. So those other dreams, you're like, okay, this is part and parcel with what I did before. It's just slightly different in a new realm, essentially.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Because it's like, I mentioned earlier, when I was just cooking and hip hop was dabbling and it was a dream and whatever. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that you could make a living, maybe not be rich, but you could work your way up and this and that. And like, there's so many places to fit in with hip hop, and the consistency and being disciplined and taking it serious have so much to do with that, where it's like in the beginning you go, oh man, like I'm not a top 5, so I shouldn't even try. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you can do it. Just keep at it. Take it seriously. Build a business, build a brand, just like anything else. And it's like, taking plenty of risks in this and seeing lots of down, lots of up, lots of in between. And for me, like I'm a spiritual dude. So it's like, I know I have a higher power that's always got my back, no matter what's going on. It's like good, bad, in between. It always works out somehow. I don't know. I don't know if I'm lucky or what. I believe it's a higher power, but everything always works out.
Yeah. Do you think that stops people looking at the top 5 and them going, they're just too far away from me to be even possible?
It could definitely. It's like if you're not looking, because I mean, also there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's like you might be someone that only knows like top 5s, top 10s, and you're not like really in it. You're not seeing the underground. You're not seeing, oh, there's executives. Oh, people are on YouTube making money, or people are doing this making money, and you're just seeing someone that's buying CDs or just whatever, and you're doing it. You're not connecting with anyone in the community. The big thing is like finding people that are successful or at least paying their bills. You know what I mean? And, oh, hey, I'm friends with this guy or woman, and oh, this is really happening. Because yeah, you can easily let that. I mean, I know for me, I easily let that get the best of me. When I started doing music full time, I got fired from a job for the first time in my life, and I was like swearing up a storm, pissed off, scared, and then I thought for a second, oh, this is exactly what I need. And that evening, I went home, cooked up. And the amount of drive that I had of thinking, I gotta make something happen. Not I want to or I wish to. I have to make something happen. The amount of like productivity that I had that night was insane. And I was also lucky too, because I was in a accountability team of men at the time. And so like those men were not going to let me fail, where we had weekly meetings of accountability and check-ins and making sure that we were all doing what we said we were doing. So it's like having closed mouth friends, having a support system is really huge, letting people in, because it is a crazy thing to do. And it is something that people won't want to or don't want to get vulnerable about, the stuff that we go through as artists.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right that people don't realize what they could possibly do and all the things that they could possibly do. Because like even still, I'm still learning of like all the different jobs within hip hop, let alone the music industry in general. And like how many mouths actually, are fed off creating music. And sometimes it's like, hey, maybe your path isn't to be the rapper. Maybe your path is to be, the sound engineer. Maybe it's not even to do that. Maybe it's like even in just like the legal team or whatever it might be. Like you just never know. And I think the best artists that I've spoken to, they're open to seeing where the journey takes them. Like some people, the best ones are like, I wanted to be the artist that's on the mic. And I realized at some point that that's not for me. But what I was really good at was like producing and making the beats. And so I stuck to that, and that's where I am now and successful because of it, as opposed to, hey, I just want to be the star in shining lights. So I think that is definitely an important piece, to be maneuverable enough to
huge
the right moves and take the right opportunities, as opposed to being stubborn and just like slamming your head against the wall, essentially. Like it's weird. Stubborn and determination are like similar but different, because you got to see sometimes the writing on the wall.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That's a really valid point. I know for me, I was able, sometimes your pride gets in the way, you know what I mean? And sometimes, and it's okay to have that pride and to get crushed and to feel sad and have the doubts and stuff.
That's why you were motivated. You got fired. Right. And then all of a sudden, because I think that is the best thing that you can ever be, is like take negativity, and if you can somehow channel it into positivity, and like you were able to make yourself accountable, you had people that you were speaking to. So that's like the ego is good, because it can get you to be like, fuck, I want to do more, or I know I can do better. So yeah, that happened with you.
Oh yeah, no, that definitely happened. So it's like I remember coming to New York and thinking like my beats were sick, like they were nasty. And then I'll say it. So, I linked up with Static Selecta, and Termanology, and they became like my OGs, my big homies, showed me everything. I followed Static everywhere. He molded me. He taught me the game, Static, Term. Like they just, it was crazy how that happened. I looked up to them, and they were unattainable people. And then they became some of my closest friends. And they just, it's like an artist. It was like a natural artist development. And I remember being like, yeah, my beats are crazy. Static was like, yo, you got dope beats, blah, 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 this and that. And then like the first pack I sent to Term and that he listened to, he was like, yo, you thought those were good? He's like, yo, those were trash. You wasted my time. And I was late for a DJ gig, and I only waited for him to show up to the spot we were at to say what up and peace. So I had to leave. So leaving, it looked like I kind of did with my tail between my legs. But like every day when I made beats, I was like, I have to make better beats than that. I have to make better beats than that. I have to. And then, we've done mad tracks together now. You know what I mean? So it's like I took those things. I might not have felt positive even when I was using them, but I used it in a positive situation. And it's like when I came to New York, I was, in New Hampshire and Maine, Mass, whatever. Like I was DJing, and then I was trying to make producing happen. And then I was learning audio engineering at the same time because I just wanted to be able to mix my own stuff that I made the beats for. Because I heard, Dre does that, Primo does that, Static does that. So I was like, all right, those guys do it. Like that means I have to be able to mix my own stuff. I moved to New York. I'm trying to figure it out, whatnot. And I'm like hitting up every spot. I'm really knocking on nightclub doors, bar doors. I'm getting the worst DJ gigs. Like it's just trash. It is hard in the streets. And then all of a sudden, producing starts moving and DJing starts dwindling. And I was like, man, this sucks. But like, I kind of have to let this happen. And I was like, instead of chasing those, just like work hard, and whatever happens is what's, let that happen. And I started making more money on beats and getting the notoriety with that. And I kind of solidified a certain point. And then at some point engineering started happening more often. Me and Term opened up a studio. We had I think it was like 93 clients and a lot of repeat clients the first year that we opened up the studio. And I told Term, yo, I don't know what's going to happen. I've never opened up a studio before. I've only recorded at the crib. And we had that much success. And then, it was kind of equal parts. It was like producing, engineering. And then like lately, producing has not gone down, but has kind of stayed and is still growing. But now engineering is just like, I don't know if I'd say taking off, but it's bigger than what I ever thought it would be. You know what I mean? Like my main gig is an engineering thing, and producing is where it's been at. You know what I mean? Like now I work for DJ Premier as one of his engineers, and that's my day job. And it's like that. The only reason why I learned how to engineer was because I knew he mixed his own stuff. So it's just let it happen, man.
That is honestly crazy. I will definitely ask you about DJ Premier in a moment because I'm a massive fan, as no surprise, to be honest. But yeah, what did Term say? Like, what was his feedback on those beats? I'm interested in that. Like, because you send him beats. Do you think they're good? He says they're not good.
He said they were trash and I wasted his time.
Did he say why they were trash, or did he just straight up was just like these?
Not really.
Okay, so it was up to you to figure it out.
Time too, you know what I mean? But it was like I think at that point, like the way that me and Static's relationship, it was like I would just show up and just like chill and like watch him make beats, and then I'd like every like couple of I'd be, what's that? what are you doing there? And be like, oh, I'm doing this. It makes it sound, it makes it sound like this. Like, all right, cool. And then I'd be like, all right, how can I implement that but not copy exactly what he's doing? You know what I mean? And then that kept going. And then it was like, all right, now I'm kind of bored. So I would make beats on my headphones. And like at one point we had a pool table in his studio. And I did a whole series called Pool Table Beats. It was like pool table 1 through 45. Like every beat. So in my head, I was like, all right, these are like inspiring beats because I'm watching Static make beats while I'm making beats. So, but yeah, Term was like, and he knows this. We talk about this all the time. This is not like this has been in the group conversations where he was like, yo, they're trash. And now we've done tons of tracks together. I've been on his album. He's been on my album. We've been on other people's albums together. We're working on a bunch of stuff right now too. So, things change. You have to get better.
It's honestly good he was honest with you.
Yeah.
Because he could have been quote unquote kind and said, yeah, they're not bad. Yeah, they're pretty good. They're not right for me. And you would have not known how he actually felt, and you would have not been forced to change and to get better. But his honest criticism and his honest feedback, I think that's the challenge of the world we're in today of like, if you soften everything, it actually limits the person's ability to grow. And there is a difference between honest feedback and malicious feedback. And I think that only helped you for him to be like, this is not at the standard it needs to be. And if that demotivated you, that would have been the sign that anyone needed, which is like, hey, if you're not really into it and you just want everyone to say you're amazing, then this is not the industry for you, because ultimately you will always have to get better, because this is not the place of we do this.
I could have quit right there, and if I wasn't coachable at that point, you know what I mean? And yeah, like I've done like 2 like beat like showcase kind of battle things where like the first one, they were like, yeah, they're cool ideas and this and that. I was like trying some different things. And I was like, dude, what is that? Like, tell me what's wrong with them. Like, I want, like, dig into me. I want it. And then the second one, I think I got like second place. And, there was like an older-ish, like you could tell he was a super engineer dude, like not making beats or anything. And he was digging into everybody hard. When it got to me, he started talking and I was like, bro, I've been waiting for you because you're picking everybody apart. Like, tell me everything. And he, and I got good feedback, but I got second place because I took everything else before that into consideration. Like, Static told me, hey, you got to do this better. Hey, your bass lines are not in tune with the sample, things like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, if you want to really help somebody, really tell them what's up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you don't, then you don't, like, they're never going to get better.
Yeah, they're just going to stay there, and it could be your fault. Their failure could be your fault.
Yeah.
I might ask the person, do you want my actual honest opinion? Because I might sound mean right now if I don't ask you that. Because hey, are you okay with me giving this real feedback? Because there is, like you said, it's like there's malicious and then there's real feedback. Like, I am all for, I want people to be nice to each other, say what you mean, live life in purpose, live life with love. No fake vibrato stuff when it's not needed. Like, just be, just in harmony with life and being happy. But when you need to say something, you should be able to say something in a manner of being well-spoken, for sure.
Yeah. Well, my corporate career has always been in like managing teams and managing people. And the first thing I always say to them is like, understand that I have high standards. I'm difficult to please, but the feedback that I give you is never about you. It's never a personal attack. it's never going to be personal. I'm only going to talk about the work and understand that I know that you can do better. And so it will. And so that's always the preface of like, this is our relationship. It will never be personal. You may not like the feedback that I give all the time, but it will always be like, hey, I believe and I know that you can do better. And ultimately you'll see enough growth to come back and be like, hey, you were right. I didn't like it at the time, but you were right. And I fixed it. And now we're seeing the ultimate growth. And I think that is exactly what we're talking about, of going, hey, I'm here to help. This feedback is actually to help you. It's not to hinder you. It's not to make you feel bad. And if you feel bad, that's actually kind of sometimes the journey you need to be able to fix it. Because if you don't feel bad or you don't feel a little bit of disappointment, then there's nothing to inspire you to change.
Right. Yeah. No, it's if it stings, that's good. If it stings, that's good. Use it, like you said.
All right. Now we're going to move on to Primo, because if I wasn't, to be fair, there was a period where I probably talked about Primo like once a week, like every single episode. It's been a while since I spoke about him, but how did that work of working with him? And that is so funny when you're like, that's my day job, because it's like, do you know how many people would want that as their day job? That's like the dream for a lot of people, of like being able to rub shoulders with arguably the best producer of all time. He's had a hand in so many different artists around the evolution of hip hop, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. That like, it is crazy.
Still try to replicate his beats to this day and always will.
Yeah. But how did you end up being able to work with him? And now obviously you have that working relationship of like, this is what I do.
I mean, everything's a long journey. It's also working for Preem, so it's like I won't get into all of it. But like, he's Static's OG. He's everybody's OG, but like he's definitely Static's OG. They have a good relationship as friends, and same with Term. Like Term's done a bunch of work with him. I think he's done like 10 joints with Preem. And just like from being around, Static showed me the world. Like he showed me everything. He introduced me to everybody. Being around, seeing Preem, and like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, thank you. But like, you gotta play cool and like all this kind of stuff. And but it was just like he knew I was around, and and he noticed my production. Before we even worked together, he was playing my records on his show. On Sirius, and that right there was just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like my mind was being blown every time, and it happened a few times. And I know like with Tabula Rasa, it was pretty steady. With the joint with XP the Marksman and Dome Piece the DXA. He played a few joints, and there was a couple other joints. He actually played a joint. It was the first time might have been my first time that Preem had ever played a song, and it was like a B-side of one of Bobby J's joints that I produced, and then like Preem played like a B-side of like a Term record that I did on Vintage Horns for him. So it was really just, over time. It was a very gradual thing. And then, a lot of solidifying, I would say, would be with, having the studio with Term and, all that kind of stuff. So, it was an overtime thing. It wasn't an overnight. There's no, and, in this type of situation and work, like we don't really have job applications and stuff like that,
Yeah, it's not like you go on LinkedIn and you're like, hey, oh look, DJ Premier is looking for a sound engineer. I wonder what the job description looks like. Let me get my resume together. Let me get a cover letter, and let me get this is not, it's not the industry for that.
It is mind blowing. It's like, cause it's working with people that I've looked up to for so long. It's just wild. It's like, like I said, Term and Static are like my brothers. You know what I mean? Like they're my older brothers. Bream is a close friend of mine now. And Fame. Yeah, it's just like all these dudes that like being in New Hampshire, you're like, oh, maybe I'll DM them or something like that. I never get a reply. And now, that's the biggest thing too, is I see, and it's a big reason why I moved to New York too, because it's like, people will be like, oh yeah, you got to go out to network. It's like, yeah, I go out, if I go out and I don't go out as much, because now my going out has turned into becoming busy and a positive. And I go out when I can, and I have, I'm a father now and stuff like that. But it's like, I might show my face, but I got friends. I have a bunch of friends that happen to be, either chasing the same dream that I have, or they already chased it and they're there and we're just doing all the same stuff. And some of them are equals, some of them are, not, and then some of them are skyrocketed above, So it's a pretty crazy, life just to be in.
Yeah. I'm sure you look at your life now and be like, I cannot believe that this is the way I'm living, as opposed to when you were 15.
Everybody that, has been able to get to any place in hip hop, I'm sure goes through that. But it's like when it's happening on the daily basis, you're like, hey, I'm showing up. I'm here for the job. Hey, let's make this happen. Hey, let's do this today. And then we have a conversation, or I talk to one of my old buddies, or I just sit. And I'm just like, whoa, what is happening? It's a blessing. It's always something to be grateful for. You gotta snap out of it, what's going on, and just be grateful for those moments, and then go harder.
Yeah. I think that is almost the hardest part, being grateful and like allowing yourself to enjoy the moment. Everyone says the journey is the most enjoyable part because it's almost simple in that sense of like you're just getting through it. But then when you're where you wanted to be or you achieve a goal, you're like, oh, I kind of miss that feeling of not knowing, of the grind and the struggle.
Yeah. See, I always want more work. So I'm just like, I'm at home with my daughter 3 days a week, and then I work 4 days a week out. And, if she's taking a nap or when she goes to bed, I'm doing stuff or something like this. Or just, be on the phone. It's like, it's a nonstop thing, but, those 4 days, it's like 12, 14-hour days. And I'm loving it, But yeah, it's easy to get jaded. It's easy to do any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, that process, like if you're not enjoying the process of getting there, then it's just, that's what you're supposed to be. If you're doing something that you love, it shouldn't be the end game that you love, because there's not a promise for the end game. Like, I'm in a great position where I'm at today, but I'm nowhere near my end game. I'm nowhere near where I would want, I love where I'm at. Don't get me wrong, I love where I'm at, but like that, like you gotta just keep boom, 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 keep going. If that's what you want. If that's not what you want, that's totally fine. Nobody has to be a dream chaser. There's a huge nobility in someone that's not creative, or maybe is creative 1 day a week, and they have a job that they can stand, and they, maybe they want to be a family person, and that's why they have their job. There's a beautiful sense in that. It's all like, for me, like I know, and I have my purpose in life, and that's all I need. My purpose is different from the other person's purpose, and as long as you know it, but there's people that don't know it, and that's okay too. But if you want to be happy in life and have it make sense, figure out what your purpose is and don't be ashamed of what it is.
Yeah. And don't be scared to try and find it. Like, I think fear stops us from trying stuff. Fear of judgment, fear of being bad at things. Like, yeah, I think that's the other part of like sometimes you get in your own way and you let doubt stop you from finding your purpose. And then that's my biggest fear, honestly, is being old and being jaded and being filled with regret that I didn't try something that I could have tried, even though I knew instinctively there was a part of me that said, you need to go do this. And I never did.
You got to listen to those. That's why I moved to New York City, because at the time I was in a relationship and I thought being in a relationship was holding me back and like this and that and my job and whatever. And come to find out, it was me. I had fear. And I knew if I didn't at least give New York a try for a few years, then I would grow old, I would have a family, and I would hate them. And I would hate myself. And I wasn't okay with that. So I was like, at least, what's the big, it was a crazy thing to do. It was hard. But what are you going to lose from that? Like, just take a leap and just do it. And if it doesn't work out and you feel like you're okay, like say I moved out here and it didn't work out and I didn't get in the position I'm in today, but I knew in my heart that I gave it everything I could, that I was capable of and that I could handle, and it didn't work out, okay, go back to do something else. And you have, you live once, but you have time, figure something else out. And like for me, the two biggest fears, and you can almost, so like the biggest one is, and you might not realize it when it's happening, most people don't, but it's like lots of layers to get to the center. It's almost always fear. Probably 85 to 90% of the time. And I would say most of that time, you can trace it back to the origin of fear of other people's opinions. Even if you're one of those people that say, oh, I don't care what people think. It's okay to say that. Totally okay to say that. But you just haven't peeled back the layers enough yet. Because as humans, it goes all the way down to fear of other people's opinions. And then the real kicker, most people think that it's fear of failure. And I would say, yes, that's a thing for sure. But flip it, and fear of success. Fear of success holds a lot more responsibility. And it's a bigger thing to handle. Because what if you do succeed? Your life is going to be crazy if you succeed. Some people don't realize they have fear of success. And it will get in their way. And they will stay there disciplined and do all these cool new foo-foo things. But they won't go as hard because they'll see how full those people's lives are that are successful. And they don't want that. They actually don't want it.
I have a bit of fear of success. I know that for sure. Like, fear of success is the weirdest thing to me because, like, fear of failure, your life doesn't really change because you went for it and you can turn around and, like, I went for it. I gave it my all. I can be okay with that. And so that's easy to overcome. But I think fear of success is really challenging because, like, there are thoughts even in my own head where I'm like, oh, I'd love to sleep in today. Where it was like, it would be nice if Nef said he wasn't free. Like, I wouldn't like it, but it would. Or there was a part of me that was like the part that's holding me back is like thinking about that of like, then okay, if he comes on, then we do a good job, and then it's the next person and his connections and people he knows start to know about me, and then all of a sudden it's like the pressure of getting better continues, and so like, but ultimately that's what I want. But it's also just this weird person inside of you, this like alter ego in a way that's like, hey, live your comfortable life right now. Forget about the other stress, because ultimately success just breeds more stress and more responsibility.
For sure. Yeah. And you said like the comfortability, the last part of the comfortability that you mentioned, not the first part. I'm also a big believer in that as well. Like, don't get comfortable don't do the, what you were talking about, like, oh, be nice. Because, yeah, that's cool. It would be nice. But, like, did you play a part in that? Because, like, all right, hey, if something cancels and you don't have anything, go relax, go enjoy life. Because that's another thing, too. It's like, for me, if you're not taking the time to relax, taking the time to take your brain out and put it to the side, doing something like I've discovered smoking pipe tobacco and having that as a whole hobby and collecting pipes and restoring pipes, I subconsciously knew that I needed something to kind of just zone out for a bit. Because when I'm not doing that, I can feel it. Like if I'm just going, which you should be, always grind, but like, spend time with your family when you can. Try to carve some time out, but don't neglect your workload. But we will be better entrepreneurs if we carve out that time and purposefully relax, purposefully do something that's not work related. For me, it's all about, is there purpose behind this? No matter what I'm doing, I need it to be purposefully.
Yeah. I think purpose and grind with balance. You can be purposeful in the way you grind. It doesn't have to be. I think there's a misnomer about the need for it to be no rest. And all I do, I don't sleep. I just grind but yeah. Grinding long term is about routine, habits, about making sure that you're in a place that is good. And yeah, I mean, I also know that on the flip side, if you did cancel, I would probably still get up and I'd be like, well, fuck, I still got to get another interview at some stage because I actually don't want to quit what I'm doing and I don't want it to fail. So then it actually creates more work than anything else. So like, it's just the self-sabotage of it all that is still there. And it's like, it's on everything. It's like, when it comes to diet, when it comes to, it just goes back to our vices of like, what are we scared of and what insecurities are we still managing? Because ultimately we are our own worst enemies. Like, and that is what we have to try and overcome.
Yeah, for sure. And we're in a weird place in the world right now because there's a lot of things that people are fighting for that are great. But when you have to fight for things, they're like going over the top so they can get here. But the beauty of what I've been seeing lately is like people like are being more open and okay about therapy and like self-preservation and being in touch and like being okay with having conversations like these that can go on the internet. Whereas like a few years ago, probably like I've been in recovery and self-work for a long time. So I'm no stranger to it, but there were a lot of people that would never a few years ago express anything. Self-doubt. It was like, dude, but it's there. It's there. You don't have to be embarrassed. It's just something. It's like fixing a cup of coffee. Like, how are you going to make it? That's it.
Well, I think you're more interesting for overcoming it than for never having it. I think that's why, like, if you look at superheroes, that's why Superman is boring as shit because, like, he doesn't have quote unquote weaknesses. Whereas, like, someone like Batman, you can see the weaknesses. It's like the flaws in his character are all over. And so we naturally, as humans, can be like, oh, I see all the weaknesses. I see the contradictions. And those are the things that's what I've always liked in characters. And they're the best characters for me right now is the people who are kind of a mess, but have potential. And I think that's kind of who we are as humans. We're all a bit of a mess and we all have potential.
Yeah. No, I see that for sure.
What have you learned with Primo? Like, have you, in terms of the way he works, is there anything that stands out to you of like something that you're like, oh no, this is something that I have to implement now in the way that I go about my own music or my own career?
Well, the thing is I'm not gonna say like, oh, we're similar because he is just so far up there. But the thing is, we get along really well. He's an amazing person. He's a super cool dude. You will get your heart broken meeting your heroes. That's a complete fact. I learned that after moving to New York. But he wasn't that for me. You know what I mean? And we got along really well. And we do get along really well. He's very the things that I got and can relate, but for him, obviously for him, he's on a higher playing field, is like being emotional with music. You know what I mean? Like putting you into that music. Like do it till it feels good. That is more so what I'm saying. Like you can be technical and all this kind of stuff, but like make sure it feels good and like you're just in the groove, because music is unexplainable. Like the way, like we have so many technologies and things like this, but it's like music has always like really been here, and some like sound. I don't think it was like created. Like we had sound and we started learning how to manipulate it, and then it turned into this and it's gonna turn into that. And it's like it's part of us. So it's those are the things that I've gotten a lot of technical things that I've learned from him. And we talk about different ways of doing stuff, which is cool. But just like that feel good with your music, and like he just has a lot of care and attention, like so much care and attention to everything that he does. So yeah, I'm sure there's a laundry list of things, but yeah, those are like two big ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I think attention to detail is always something that I've admired in him, just because like obviously he has the samples that he chooses, and then, the sample breakdowns that you can see on like TrackLib, and they're like the tiniest samples. And I'm like, how the fuck did you find that? Like not only how did you find it, but how did you listen to it and be able to hear it and be like, I could take that. It's like such a small section, but then to elongate it and then reverse it and whatever he does with it. And those attention to detail, I'm like, no, these are the reasons why you're the GOAT. Like,
it's not like, I listened until I found a loop. Like the things he does, it's insane. It's wild. It's amazing. We needed it. We need it. We always will.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do love that thing of like the feeling of like music genuinely is a feeling. Because I was having this conversation with my brother the other day, and I was like, music is so strange in that it's just, it's impact. Like you can't describe it, because different music feels different for different people. And not like this one song doesn't feel the same for every human alive. It feels different for everyone. And there's just this rhythm and there's cadence to it, and it just makes you go feel up or down. And I think that's the best part of music, is that it gets you. You don't know what it gets you to feel, but as long as it makes you feel something, that's the important part. It doesn't have to be positive or negative.
Right. No, for sure. And it's like, that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. Like I'm making music because it's hopefully that like, all right, the way that I make music is I just like, I when I make a beat, I let whatever is inside of me take over. And then at some point I have to fine tune it. And there's going to be a group of people out there that's going to like that. There's a lot of people in the world, but I'm not one of the people that's like, yeah, I make music for me, or like I only make music for people. My purpose in life is to make music so people can heal from it and escape from life. But I'm not one of these producers that goes on like Spotify or YouTube or Billboard and is like, I'm going to replicate what they're doing because that's what people want. I'm going to make what comes naturally to me. And I know there's a group of people there that are going to enjoy that.
As you should. Like that. I've always said this, that your best copy of someone else is never going to be as good as the original. But your best version of yourself is going to be the best version that anyone will ever be able to replicate. So like, you're better off being yourself rather than a B grade version of somebody else.
Right. Because they're being their self.
Yeah.
So not what right, but it's like, they came up with something on their own and now you want to be that. That's fine if that's what you want to be. I'm totally, whatever people want to do, totally okay with that. But for me, I'm not okay doing that. Like maybe I can implement this way of doing something, but I'm going to have me, and people are, I also am one of the producers that's, I'm not just making beats, I'm producing, and I'm not just this, I'm that. Like, I'm also an artist. I'm in the front of everything that I do. And, so I have that to go along with it,
Yeah. And it's clearly working for a reason. Like, there's a reason people gravitate to your music. There's a reason that people like Term and Static and obviously Primo are, feeling what you do. It's because, like, even when, like, I'm listening, I'm like, there's like almost no fake here. It's just honesty. Yeah, you did. Hello.
Can you say hi, everyone? Can you say hi? You want something else? Okay, all right. We're gonna go change the TV.
No stress. That was Nef's little one. For anyone who missed that, he said before we started the show that he would. He did say he'll be right back. He did say this before we started recording that she'll come in at some stage. Literally an hour on the nose as well. He said it probably has an hour. So we will be right back, folks. There we are.
Yeah, I don't know how much more time I have, but yeah.
Well, I only actually have one more question for you. So we actually, it was actually good timing. And you were honest, it was an hour on the nose that she came in. You
really?
said, we've got about an hour, and she came in like an hour on the nose. She heard you. She must have known.
And to everybody, I don't just let my daughter watch TV all day. This was very planned out. I didn't let her watch any TV, and after this, there's going to be no TV. I don't do that. No shade on anyone that does, but not me.
Well, it clearly worked because let's be honest, I've had episodes with kids in the background and it is very difficult to record. And so, hey man, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. I think that's parenting 101.
No, for sure. And I've done interviews, like, especially when it was like quasi lockdown still and she was super young, where like she was right there, an infant, like taking naps. And then she was like in my arms for half of the Zoom, you know what I mean? So, and just made it work.
Yeah. I mean, you are a parent, you do have responsibilities, and I'm not going to sit here and be the guy who's like, how dare you take care of your child and not give me 1,000% of your attention? Like I'm the child now.
I would say that was pretty good. An hour, that's pretty amazing.
That was great for under 3. Honestly, I was like silent, like there's no noise in the. No, I'm very impressed. You're clearly doing the right thing. But last question, the only question that I plan on the show, probably my toughest question. If you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, cannot be your own music, but can be any genre of music, what would it be?
Abbey Road.
Why?
It just does things. I mean, I grew up on the Beatles. I grew up on hippie music, and that to me is one of the best albums of all time. And it's like I don't care who you are, pretty much anybody can get down with that. The way it was recorded, what was happening in the world at that point, just where they were as a group, everything that I don't know. It's just, that can't be replicated. And no matter what I'm going through, I could be going through a bad time in life and I need that. I can be going through a good time in life, and I need that. For my daughter, that was one of the first for me out of like playing non-kid music. She liked that, and I was like almost every single song. And just there, like for me, like learning as a father, like children under a certain age are like way more human than we are, because you have to think like we grew up as humans, like in nature, farming, doing like what stuff that's natural to us as the animal form of a human, as a Homo sapien. And like pretty much everything that we do now is not natural on how we're built. We buy meat at a store. We're supposed to go and be the superior animal and win a fight and kill that being and take a bite of its heart when we do it. Like we just don't, it's just, I don't know. So when I saw her, like it's always been my favorite album, but when I saw a child at 2 years old jam out to that, I was like, this is just everybody can jam out to that.
That's awesome. Arguably the best answer I've had as to why a particular album. But I do agree, we're like results of society in a weird way. We're manufactured and we're shaped and molded by society. And I think that, yeah, I think children have the purest form of any emotion. They have unadulterated joy, sadness, confusion. They just, every emotion they feel is very pure because they haven't been molded yet. They're still very raw in their purest form. So being able to see that in your daughter, but also an album that you really love as well, would have been pretty amazing to see.
Yeah. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
Well, great answer. And obviously I am always appreciative of people like yourself coming on the show, the one and only Nef. You'll see him. He's on Instagram, produced by Nef. As we said, he is working with some amazing artists. Recent project that came out, as we said, Radio Days with Bobby J. Make sure you check it out. There's promos on IG as well. But man, your music is genuinely fantastic. Like it is such a good quality. I'm not just saying that. Like the beats, the samples, just the way it works, the way it's structured, like it just does get you to feel something. And for anyone who hasn't listened, I can only urge you to make sure you do. But man, it's been an absolute pleasure. And is there anything else you wanted to plug? Anything else you wanted to shout out?
You just plugged everything for me. I will say, I don't know when this will drop, but Bobby J and I did just the other day drop the not like really behind the scenes and not really mini doc. Like we put a piece of content out. Our boy Derek, like a machine, he filmed it for us. Where it's like we called it Beyond the Music, where it's like 15, it's either 15 or 17 minutes, where we just talk about the album. So it's super dope. It's in our bios. Definitely check that out. The album's been out for a little while now. But yeah, always more to come. I've got a bunch of stuff out there that people can go back catalog. And I really appreciate you having me on. This man reached out to me. I opened my phone, saw a DM, and I was like, yeah, let's get it, bro. And he instantly was like, okay, cool. Here's the link. And we worked out a date, and it was super easy. So I appreciate that. Very organized and professional.
My pleasure, man. Hey, I realized a long time ago, if I'm going to ask you to come on my show, it's my job to make sure it's as easy and stress-free as possible. And also, I want you to be able to, I want you to want to come back on the show at some point. And if I make it difficult from the first moment, then that is never going to be a good feeling. So yeah. Oh, for sure. And man, yeah, I appreciate it. Obviously, I've been doing this for a little while and there's a lot for me to improve, but that means a lot. And you giving me your time also means an absolute lot. So absolute pleasure. And we'll definitely have to do this again.
All right, for sure. Thank you so much.
All right, let's